Alex, let's kick off with the appointment of Tony Abbott, former Australian Prime Minister. He's going to be an unpaid trade advisor to the UK government. He has had some colourful and perhaps controversial views in the past. I wonder whether this is more symbolic than anything else. This is the government and the Downing Street machine saying to everybody else, we are not going to be bullied out of appointing someone that we want to give a job to.
Yeah, and at last, can I just say, because it seems to me this government is the government of press releases and reacting to what the media wants and looking at metrics and public opinion and polling and data rather than having a strong strategy and conviction about where they want to go and what they want to do. So actually, it's quite a relief to see that they're being robust about their decision to appoint Tony Abbott. And I don't think there is a problem with someone like Tony Abbott heading up a trade envoy, because the man has a wealth of experience in doing trade deals on behalf of his own nation. He understands Brexit. He's always been a big advocate for Brexit and for Britain's place in the world as an independent trading nation. So I don't think we need to be too lily-livered about something that might be regarded as problematic because it's not politically correct that he might have said eons ago.
Indeed. Richard, notwithstanding his perhaps unpalatable views on the issue of LGBT people and also women, I'm not sure I care, actually. I think I'd probably quite happily employ Mad Frankie Fraser if he was good at getting trade deals.
Well, I think this is kind of the problem, isn't it? That it's somebody who has these views is sure going to kind of like is going to annoy maybe some liberal people who we're trying to do a trade deal with. Perhaps some conservative people that we'll want to do a trade deal with will agree with him. But all of them are going to be appalled by this man's behaviour because he's known as one of the most ridiculously attention-seeking, divisive people in Australian politics. You know, this is the kind of Trump of Australian politics. He's known for being a provocateur who's built his career on that. And you know what? He was quite successful at it for a time. But that's not how you do trade deals. As a journalist covering Brexit over many years, I met so many bureaucrats from all different countries, and I can tell you that none of them were the kinds of people who are impressed by someone like that. These are often quite dry people, quite bureaucratic people. They work on detail. They are not going to be impressed by someone like that. They're going to be extremely unimpressed. They're not going to be able to build a strong relationship with him. You know, this is somebody who destroyed Australia's car industry by withdrawing government support for it and then deliberately goaded overseas investors to quit it. He is not somebody that we should be trusting with building back our industry. It's not in our interests to employ someone like this, regardless of his views.
Although, Richard, we're not appointing the next Archbishop of Canterbury here. Ultimately, this is a man who will help advise on our trade deals around the world. And we know what having a weak position when negotiating a trade agreement looks like. And that was the Theresa May government. So I'm thinking it's time for a bit of tough love.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure that that tough love has to come in the form of somebody who revels in being a provocateur. You know, that makes great reality TV, doesn't make a great political leader. That's what we've seen with the American president. The fact is that the way that trade negotiations work generally is on a very detailed policy making, kind of granular policy level. It's not something that somebody who is impressive and bombastic in front of the cameras is necessarily going to be good at. You know what? I think actually the Prime Minister knows that. He doesn't try to get involved too much with the negotiations. He lets David Frost do it because he knows he's not the personality type that's going to ever be successful with this sort of thing. Getting Tony Abbott into this role, he's not doing that because he thinks that Tony Abbott's actually going to be any good at the job. It's because right now he's trying to distract us from all of the other bad stuff that's going on. And this is the thing with this government. Every time you get one of these kind of culture war stories in the newspapers that they've put in there, it's because they're trying to distract us. Right now, there are 600,000 people who are very, very vulnerable to eviction after September the 20th, when the eviction ban ends. We've got, how many is it? 8 million people who are going to be coming out of furlough soon. Very, very high proportion of them could be made redundant very soon. The government's trying to distract us from its appalling mismanagement of the coronavirus pandemic with silly little things like Tony Abbott.
Alex, do you think it's odd that we've had to outsource to Australia to find a good trade envoy?
No. Why would it be odd when for the past 50 years we've been incarcerated inside the EU trading blocks? We haven't been doing those things for ourselves. We haven't had the opportunity to draw up bespoke agreements or go batting out for ourselves as a country. So it's not odd that we do not have that firepower. We don't necessarily have those resources. And yeah, I think that I can understand why we've had to look down under for that, because they've had the opportunity to be an independent trading nation for a long time. And I'm not so worried about whether people think that, his character as an agitateur might not be good for doing business or doing deals. At the end of the day, there are going to be a whole host of mandarins and civil servants beneath him who are going to be looking at the nitty-gritty, crossing T's and dotting I's, top legal experts, other people I'm sure we're going to have to ship in because we don't have those departments ready and waiting after years of neglect.
Yeah.
But I think that the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Let's see the sort of job that he does. Let's evaluate his performance based upon whether he brings home the bacon or not. And if he doesn't, then great, let's find someone else. But I think that sort of, discussing the man and whether he can do the job or not before he's even had the chance to start operating in that position is rather futile.
Well, his pedigree, notwithstanding some of his comments about particular groups in Australian society, his pedigree on trade deals is pretty decent. Whilst Prime Minister of Australia from 2013 to 2015, he negotiated free trade deals with Japan, China and South Korea. I think I'd take that.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, he's a man who has gone out batting for his own country on the trading circuit in the global marketplace. And whatever people might say about certain agreements that were made, he has that pedigree, he has that heritage, and he has that skill set, which we're sadly lacking in the UK because we haven't had the opportunity to do that in about 5 decades.
Now, Alex, our lives might depend on trade deals with Japan, China and South Korea because it doesn't look like one is coming anytime soon from the EU. Boris Johnson has demanded that British fishermen double the size of their catch from Britain's coastal waters, leading to deadlock in post-Brexit trade and fisheries talks. Is he overplaying his hand on fishing, do you think?
No, I don't think he's overplaying his hand, and he's doing what we expect of him and what he should be doing. But I don't have so much confidence that the net result, sorry for the pun, didn't mean for that, that the net result is actually going to be quite what we wanted. The difficulty is, of course, there's going to be a lot of this dispirited projection coming out of these meetings because Boris Johnson put forward vague promises, actually quite strict promises in the political declaration, and the EU are holding him to that and saying, well, look, you've said that in principle you're going to be happy to have a level playing field and follow our rules on state aid and have a degree of jurisdiction from the ECJ, and also to continue with the status quo when it comes to fishing. And he's turning around and saying, sorry, that was, here's another pun, a red herring. And so we're actually now going to fight against all of those things. I don't know if necessarily politically he had much choice about whether that's the route to follow. But the difficulty is, of course, there's going to be increasing pressure on him from both big business, other voices in other sectors who want to have their priorities at the top of the list. Fishing's probably going to be bumped back down, symbolically important when it comes to GDP, arguably less so rather than, as opposed to the financial services sector. And there's going to be a lot of competing demands on Boris Johnson and on David Frost. And I just hope that in that situation at the 11th hour, they don't start mortgaging away huge tranches of British industry and independence and sovereignty when a lot of us Brexiteers are quite happy to just wipe the slate clean and then go back and start negotiating with countries and building a new relationship with the EU from a position of absolute independence and strength.